Hi everybody and welcome to Heel Heat. My name is George Coles, and on this episode we're doing Who is Better. The topic for this Who is Better, the four pillars of AEW, Darby Allin, Jack Perry, Sammy Guevara, and MJF. And basically, if you haven't seen any of my videos like this previously, what we're going to do, we're going to break each man down into 8 separate categories. Each category has a 1 to 5 scale, 1 being worst, 5 being best. And at the end of the 8 categories, we're going to total it up. There is an opportunity for bonus points. Basically, we'll get to that at the end. There was a poll that I put up on my community page of the YouTube channel, which I asked you guys your opinion, which will add to bonus points to this. With that being said, we're going to jump right into this, starting off with technical ability. This is your basic wrestling skill. There's suplexes, submission holds, what you would consider technical wrestling. Starting off with Darby Allin. Darby, I'm going to give a 3. It's not that Darby's bad at this, and when he has the opportunity to wrestle this style, he does do pretty good. Darby has more of a style that's akin to like Mankind, where he's more of a brawler, more of a hardcore guy. So you see more of that style for him. That's not to say that he's not good at this, it just isn't his specialty. Next up, Jack Perry. I'm going to give Jack a 3 too. The thing with Jack Perry and all of these guys, they're all still very young. I think Sammy's the oldest, and I believe he just turned 31 or 32. And I might be wrong with that. I believe they're all under that age. So they all have room to improve. But for Jack Perry, to me, he's been the guy that's not had the big match opportunities as much as the other guys have. And when he has, it's been either as part of a team or part of a group. So he really hasn't had a chance to shine in this area. Again, much like Darby, I don't think he's bad. I just don't think he's had that opportunity yet. Next, for Sammy Guevara. Sammy, I'm going to give a 3 too as well. Sammy has flashy moves. He has high-flying moves that are really awesome. However, the other part of Sammy, if you took away his high-flying moves, could he have a great match? In other words, let's say he went to Bloodsport with no ring ropes. Would he have a good match there? And I don't think he'd have a bad match. Again, that's why he's getting a 3 here, but I don't think he's particularly skilled in this area. Last but not least, Maxwell Jacob Friedman. For Max, I'm giving Max a 4. Out of the 4 guys, he's had the most opportunities to show this side of himself off. Whether that be in the Iron Man matches he's done, or the basically hour-long matches he's done, the kinds of feuds he's been in. He's got to show this off. So for that, I'm giving Max a 4. Next up, striking. This is your chops, your clotheslines, your drop kicks, all of that. For this, I do think we're going to start with Darby again. For Darby, I think Darby's getting a 5. This is where he excels. There's a reckless abandon to Darby Allin that reminds me a lot of Mick Foley, reminds me a lot of Sabu, where you know he's doing so much damage to himself, but it's also so impressive what he does. He's doing things that no one else can do. I mean, he really looks like a human pinball at points. He takes what should be a very slight frame for a pro wrestler, and you don't really think about that. You don't think of how small Darby is, because he's in there and he's bouncing off you and he's giving everything he has. For that, I think he's a very skilled striker. Next up, for Jack Perry, I'm going to give Jack a 3 here again. I just don't think he's been asked to do anything special. His matches aren't bad, they're just what they are. He hasn't, to me, had that real breakout yet where he's had a superb match or a superb run of matches, and that's not a knock on Jack. Again, these guys are all very young. They could all turn it around very quickly. I'm giving Jack a 3 in this. Next up, for Sammy Guevara, Sammy's getting a 3 as well. You'll notice in a lot of these, Jack Perry and Sammy Guevara get a lot of the same rating because they have similar paths in AEW, whereas Darby Allin and MJF, they've had more chances at the top of the card in big game situations. And that's not saying Perry's been a TNT champion. He's a current TNT champion as we're watching this. He's been a tag champion. Sammy's been a tag champion. He's, I believe, the current Ring of Honor tag champions with Dustin Rhodes. He's been a multiple-time TNT champion. But it definitely feels like neither of the two have had that real opportunity to show this off. Now, last but not least in this category, we're going to go with MJF. MJF again is going to get a 4. There are very little holes in MJF's game. He is so good in the storytelling he tells in the ring, whether it be a brass knuckle or dynamite diamond ring or chain or anything of that nature. He just uses every bit of motion so well and tells such a great story. His style, to me, reminds me so much of a hybrid between CM Punk and Randy Orton, where, yes, you're not going to get the flashiness as someone like Sammy Guevara or the crazy spots like Darby Allin, but you're never going to get a bad match out of him. You're always going to get a high-quality match out of MJF. That's why I'm giving him a 4 here. Next category, how they perform as a heel. For Darby, Darby's getting a 3. And basically, I know he hasn't been a heel in AEW just yet. He has been a heel before that, and I've seen some of his heel work. It's one of those things to me, Darby Allin kind of has that curse that Sting has, or even Mick Foley later in his career, where you just don't want them to be a heel. So no matter how good the work they're doing is, they're so charismatic, and we'll get to charisma in a minute here, and they have such a connection with the fans, and they're so different. It's kind of like a Jeff Hardy even. You don't believe them as a heel. You believe them more as a face. And that's not to say he didn't do great work, and that's not to say that he won't go on to be a great heel at some point. Just as of right now, I think he's very middle of the road. Next up, Jack Perry. If you would have asked me 2 years ago if I thought Jack Perry could have been an effective heel, I would have told you absolutely no. He's got such a pretty boy underdog look to him, and I mean that in the best possible way, that I always thought he would have an impossible task in turning heel. What he's done with the scapegoat character, I think, has been really good. And he took something that could have been a very big negative, which was really a very big negative in the CM Punk situation, and he's used it to evolve his character. He's used it to add layers. He's brought a realism to it. For that, Jack Perry gets a 4. I think what he's doing right now is the best character he's been in his entire career, and I think he's doing an awesome job at it. Next up, Sammy Guevara. We've seen more of Sammy as a heel than Jack or Darby, but for Sammy, he doesn't feel like he's a heel that you want to boo just because he's a heel. He feels more like he's annoying, or he's an ancillary character to like Chris Jericho, when Chris Jericho has him in groups forever. I'm giving Sammy Guevara a 3. I think he has some good heel tendencies. I think he tends to go a little bit too far into the annoying side. He does have what we would call a punchable face, and I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean that in a way that's very good, especially for a wrestler. A lot of this could also be that we're in an era where we have the Sammy Guevara blogs, and we can watch those and see how he is as a real person, and maybe that takes away from him being a heel. Just my opinion. Last but not least, MJF. MJF's getting a 5. To me, MJF right now is in the short conversation of who the best heels in wrestling are current. It's him. It's Dominic Mysterio. Throw in Roman Reigns as a heel. He's right up there. He's the upper echelon. And probably when it's said and done, he's going to go down as probably one of the 10 greatest heels of all time. And he's so good at this. At some point, I think it's going to have the Ric Flair effect where it turns him face and he doesn't change his character. But we'll see that later. As of right now, I think he is one of the 2 or 3 best heels in wrestling. Next up, as a babyface, Darby Allin gets a 5. Much like I said with Sting, with Jeff Hardy, Darby's one of those guys that just connects with the crowd. You may not even be able to explain his connection. There's just something inherently likable about him, and some of it is his ties to Sting. For that, Darby gets a 5. I think he is a perfect underdog babyface. Almost everybody he wrestles is going to be bigger than him. Almost everybody he wrestles is going to do some heinous stuff to him because he is able to get away with that. That's why he's one of the best faces in wrestling right now. Next up, Jack Perry. I'm giving Jack a 4 as well. For his role in Jurassic Express and even as his Jungle Boy run, I felt, much like I said with Darby, he had that connection with the fans. His is more akin to me to Tito Santana, where he's a classic babyface that you want to cheer for, kind of like Tito. whereas Darby's more like Jeff Hardy. I think Jack Perry makes a really good face. That's why he gets a 4. Sammy Guevara, he's getting a 4 as well. I know that there's people that get annoyed by Sammy, but I think when Sammy is at his best is when he is playing a face character. And a lot of the reasons I think people get annoyed with him is the stories he's been involved with, not necessarily him himself. I think he's one of those characters that'll do well as both a face or a heel, but for that, I'm giving him a really high mark because I think he does make a really effective face. Now, last but not least in this category, MJF. MJF, I'm giving a 3. We have so little to build on with MJF as a face, basically about 6 months. And let's be honest, was it fun watching him and Adam Cole's thing together? Yeah, some of it was fun, but it wasn't groundbreaking. This felt like a cheap version of the Rock and Sock Connection or any of that nature of mismatched friends. I don't want to say he was bad, but again, maybe it's more of an incomplete. MJF gets a 3. Next up, we have promo ability. It's basically your interviews, your mic work, your promos in the ring, all mashed up in one. For Darby, Darby is getting a 3. If anybody else but Darby tried to pull off Darby Allin's promos or Darby Allin's interview style, it wouldn't work. Just like if anybody else tried to pull off the Macho Man style or Dusty Rhodes style, it wouldn't work for them. It's so unique to him that it fits with his character. I don't think he's great at promos. I think he's getting there. I think he's getting better and better. His connection with Sting, where Sting was never a great promo guy, I think that's really helped him raise his level, because if you would have asked me this in the beginning of AEW, I would have probably said he is a 0. But he has improved, and I think he's pretty good at it. He's right at average, which is an improvement for him. Next up, Jack Perry. I'm giving Jack a 2. For most of his career, he's been a mute. We've seen a little bit more with the Scapegoat character, which I don't think is all the way there to where I would call that a great promo guy just yet. There are some times that he stumbles. He doesn't get his point across. I think it's more the aura of him as that character than it is the promos. I think it will get there. I think he's working towards that, but as of right now, we're in the building blocks of that. He can only go up from here. Next up, Sammy Guevara. Sammy's getting a 2. I don't think Sammy's ever been great at this. The best I could say was when he would do the picture-in-picture with the signs. I thought that was really good, and that really helped build his character and really helped hide some deficiencies. That was his version of a promo. Whenever he's had to do a promo, whether it be hamming it up with Chris Jericho or standing up for himself, I think he falls flat. And again, it may be one of those things that he just needs more reputation, but as of right now, I'm giving him a 2. Last but not least for promos, we got MJF. MJF's getting a 5. If you have to ask why MJF gets a promo 5, you've never watched an MJF promo. Does he go for the low-hanging fruit more than I would personally like? Yes. But if there was a guy in wrestling that was more like the heels that I loved when I was a kid, whether that be Roddy Piper, or as I got a bit older, CM Punk, where they mix so much of the truth into it and let so much of that shine through, it is going to be something that turns him face. I guarantee you at some point he's not going to have to change his character and he's going to be an absolute mega baby face. But as of right now, he is definitely a 5. One of the best promo men in the business. Next up, we're going to presentation. Basically, this is your ring gear, your music, your entrances, all of that stuff. Starting off with Darby Allin, Darby gets a 5. There's no one in wrestling that looks like or moves like or dresses like Darby Allin. And as I say that, I know there's probably going to be 10 of you that put in the comments, look at this indie guy that does the Darby gimmick. His presentation is so perfect for him, whether it be the skateboard, the music. I think Darby has the best AEW original music, and what I mean by that is not something that was already a song. Like Final Countdown for Danielson is a great song, and it fits him extremely well. But Darby has the best made for wrestling music, if that makes sense, in AEW. His presentation to me, absolutely, he knocks it out of the park. For Jack Perry, Jack's going to get a 3. Again, Jack is coming up, and the Scapegoat, maybe I'm doing this 6 months too early, but I like a lot of what's being done with the Scapegoat character. I do think there's a lot of missed opportunities with him as well. He's not been bad, but he hasn't been great. Sammy Guevara, Sammy's going to get a 3 as well. I mean, you can basically cut and paste what I said about Jack Perry here. I do like the fact that he does change his gear up quite often, but if you didn't say Sammy Guevara at the beginning of his theme music, I don't think I'd be able to pick it out if he played it for me. There's nothing special other than when he came out with the panda head about what Sammy does presentation-wise. Again, I don't think he's bad. I just think he's middle of the road. Next up, MJF. MJF gets a 5. And he might not have the pyrotechnics or everything that someone like even Darby Allin gets, but again, his presentation is so perfect for his character. Whether he comes out in a suit with a Burberry scarf, or the music that fits him well, or the Burberry Titantron, or like he just did at All In where he came out basically looking like Apollo Creed. He gets it. He understands that this is a big part of the game. That's why he gets a 5. Next up, we're going with charisma. Starting off with Darby Allin. Darby gets a 5. I've mentioned it already. Darby has that charisma that's so unique to just Darby Allin. Much like Sting, much like Jeff Hardy, Darby has that same kind of charisma that he instantly connects with people. For Jack Perry, believe it or not, I'm giving Jack a 4 here. And the reason being is I did think he had charisma as Jungle Boy. From the first time I ever saw Jungle Boy wrestle, which I want to say was either in bar wrestling or Game Changer wrestling, he had something. And part of that is he's a good-looking man. There's a natural charisma that comes off of him. Now, he has hit some stumbling points, but again, I keep bringing up the scapegoat character, and I know there's a lot of people that don't like it, and I know there's a lot of CM Punk fans that can't separate this from that, which I get. It is so much tied into that. But for me, I'm a CM Punk fan, and I love what Jack is doing with the scapegoat character. That's why I think his charisma is off the charts. He's getting a 4 here. He's not quite up at the 5 level, but he's getting there. I think he'll get there. Give it another year. I think he's a 5. Sammy Guevara, Sammy gets a 2. The reason I give Sammy a 2 is because if you watch Sammy's blogs or vlogs, and then you watch him on TV, there's such a disconnect. And I don't just mean that out of character and in character. He's so charismatic on those vlogs and not as charismatic in the ring. And it's a stark difference. And maybe he gets that both together. Maybe it's the nerves. I don't know what it is. Maybe the natural setting allows him to be more of Sammy. Maybe that's what they need to let him do on television. But for that, I think Sammy just doesn't have that charisma. He doesn't have that it factor. And again, I like Sammy Guevara. Don't get me wrong here. I'm not talking bad about any of these people. I'm just calling it how I see it. So Sammy gets a 2. Last but not least, MJF. MJF gets a 5. Much like Darby Allin, he gets his character, he connects with his character, he connects with the fans. He has you eating out of the palm of his hands. If he wants you to boo him, you're going to boo him. If he wants you to cheer him, you're going to cheer him. Again, I do think he does tend to go into the low-hanging fruits, but overall, he's so charismatic at what he does, like a Roddy Piper, and I know that's a big example, that's a big comparison for someone like MJF or like a Bobby Heenan. He has that capability, in my opinion. Now the last category, category 8, big game wrestlers. How they perform when they're in championship matches, when they're in the main event of the show, when they main event a pay-per-view, when they're the guy that's tasked to sell the seats for their next live show. Starting off with Darby. Darby gets a 5. Darby is a big game performer. This is the quintessential example. He steps it up. He goes further than any human being should really go. He gives you something that you've never seen almost every time he's out there. He gives excellent matches. Darby gets a 5. Jack Perry, I'm going to give a 4 to. And the reason I'm giving him that, I know I mentioned earlier, his striking and his technical ability might not be the greatest. I do think that he steps it up in the big time. When he gets in the tag championship matches, when he was just in the War Games match, or Blood and Guts. I know they call it Blood and Guts, but you get what I'm saying. He absolutely steps it up. I don't think we have a lot of an example of that, but for me, I'm giving him a 4 here because when he does it great. Hopefully he keeps that up. Sammy Guevara as well. Sammy's going to get a 4 as well. He's had even less opportunity than Jack Perry. Most of it in Blood and Guts matches or different multi-man matches in his Inner Circle time or Jericho Appreciation time. But I do think he does step it up. I'd like to see him get more opportunity. I do think he's very good at it. I think he can pull out a great main event level star out of him. And maybe some of these other categories would go up as well. MJF is a 5. MJF has been involved in some of the best wrestling matches in AEW history. My favorite match in AEW history as of right now, well, actually my second favorite match, because my favorite match is still Cody Rhodes versus Dustin Rhodes at the first Double or Nothing, but my second favorite is the dog collar match between MJF and CM Punk. And whether it be that match, his matches with Ospreay, his matches with Danielson, his match with Joe, every other match through the years, when you put Max in a big game situation, he steps up. Max is your Game 6 Michael Jordan. He is the quintessential face of the company, someone that you could build on. Now let's go for our totals, starting with Darby Allin. Darby gets a total of 34. Jack Perry gets a total of 27. Sammy Guevara gets a total of 24. And MJF gets a total of 36. For the bonus points, this is what I leave up to you. You could get 5 bonus points, and the way you get that is every week on Wednesday, I'm going to put a survey on my community page of the YouTube channel, and you can go there and vote. We've had over 500 votes for this, which thank you very much. It blows my mind how many people are engaging in that. And the winner of that survey, what you guys think, who you guys think is the best of these four, MJF. So MJF gets a bonus 5 points, bringing his total up to 41. It didn't change the outcome. It could have, but that's why it's there. If that would have went to Darby Allin, that would have put Darby Allin from second place to first. Now you see why it's important. So check out the community page every Wednesday. I'm going to post on there my next week's survey so you can get your voice heard, so you can get involved. I like reaching out to you guys, having this conversation. I like reading the comments, whether you agree with me or disagree with me on these. I like some of the arguments that some of you people have, and some of you guys change my mind on some of these things. With that being said, let's make sure to smash the like button, share the video, subscribe if you haven't, all that fun stuff YouTubers tell you to do. It really does help us out. The engagement definitely helps. Please leave a comment. I don't even care if you just say comment. That definitely helps out as well, because any kind of engagement on the videos, on our community pages, it really helps you to promote us. Now, as I normally do, I'm going to give you a bit of a spoiler for what next week's Who Was Better is going to be. And I'm just going to let you know, the spoiler is this. You've seen them throughout the entire video, and it may be easy for you to figure it out, may not. We're going to do 2 guys next week. With all that being said, my name is George Coles, and it's been another episode of Who Is Better.